Hi, I'm Ash and welcome to this review of the Ozone Flux V2, which we have in the standard Dacron and also in the Ultra X Aluula version. This review is going to focus mainly on the Dacron Flux V2, but I will cover some elements of the Ultra X where I feel it differs from the Dacron version and give some general thoughts and comparison between the two wings, other than the huge price difference for the Aluula version. Unlike last year's Dacron version, we no longer have the lightweight Dacron of the Flux V1, but it is a more standard, heavier Dacron material, which does mean we have a bit more weight in the wing than the V1, but it is also cheaper than the V1 Flux. We have the usual exceptional build quality that you expect from an Ozone product, with clean stitching and really nice construction. It definitely has the Ozone quality feel to it. The Dacron airframe is constructed from Tosian triple ripstop Dacron, and the canopy is Tosian Technoforce triple ripstop. We have low profile reinforcements on the wingtips and load diffusers on the wingtips and the rear of the strut. The trailing edge of the canopy is reinforced with a Dyneema line, and we have stiff battens per wing to stop canopy flap. The handles are stitched onto the strut and feature a rubberized moulded grip. There are also very decent ball protectors on the handles to stop the handles causing damage to your board should they hit it, and there is ample room for a pistol style grip. The handles are quite comfortable and non-abrasive to the hands. Something that is a little unique to the Ozone handles is due to that stitching, they sometimes kind of creak a bit when in use, which is a bit of an odd sound when you hear it, but nothing to worry about. We have double inflation through a Boston style valve with 8 psi to the strut and 7 psi to the leading edge. The leading edge is quite a chunky tube compared to some other wings on the market. The Ultra X and the Dacron versions differ a little here, as the Aluula leading edge is a little thinner and therefore a little more slippery through the wind. We have a large window along the length of the strut on each wing, and unusually for a wing window, it actually gives a pretty decent view downwind. The leading edge handle is a good size and rigid enough to control the wing. The knuckle scuff pad I was not that keen on. It's a bit more abrasive than the neoprene style protector you get on other manufacturers' wings. The Dacron wing comes with a basic waist leash with a swivel. The Ultra X comes with a much higher quality UVA foam style waist leash with a swivel, which is a little more comfortable and supportive for your back. The canopy itself on the Dacron wing is really quite tight, with a drum-like tension in the first third of the canopy. Oddly, the Ultra X canopy was significantly looser. I'm going to come back to this, as I'm not sure it was meant to be like this. In terms of weight, the Dacron version is 2.88 kilograms for the shown 5 meter, which is around about the ballpark of our reference wing, the Dacron Duotone unit. Very slightly heavier, but not really anything to be concerned about. In terms of flag out on the beach, it was very neutral and also very well behaved, with no pendulum type effect getting set up by the canopy as it was moved around in the wind. It tended to sit very still, and there was no kind of upward push or downward push on the wing. It was just a very neutrally balanced wing in the flag position. The Ultra X is of course lighter, being of Aluula construction, and comes in at 2.27 kilograms for the 5 meter. The majority of this review I'm going to focus on the Dacron Flux, and I will just do a main differences summary towards the end of the Dacron wing review, so that we highlight where the Ultra X is better or potentially worse than its cheaper Dacron sibling. Our reviews always follow the same format. I won't read out the whole list, but just put the categories on the screen. So let's start out with pump onto foil. As always, I flew the wing in various wind conditions, and for pump onto foil we are mainly concerned with low wind and ultra low wind capability, as all wings can get onto foil in good wind strength. For low wind, the wing orientated itself well to the wind, and the pump onto foil was really of no drama at all. The wing knew how it wanted to fly and did not require any special pump technique. Much like a Duotone unit, you just engage it in a vigorous pump and it generates speed and forward motion until apparent wind takes over and accelerates the wing. For ultra low wind, we again had a wing that knows how it wants to orientate itself to the wind, and again, once you initiate the pump you can build speed and it will gather momentum, generate apparent wind and get onto foil. I had previously heard comment of the Flux V2 being something of a higher wind wing, so this result was a pleasant surprise. It can hold its own on the low end as well. So we can really cover off three categories here: pump onto foil, pump technique and low end. There is little to say other than it delivers as required and to a good standard. So next let's talk about stability, balance between the hands and gust control. In terms of stability, this is a very stable wing. It likes to lock in and sit in one position, it doesn't drift or move around much, and is very confidence inspiring. The balance between the hands is perfect, and when gusts hit, the wing accelerates nicely without shifting its centre of effort. Now this was where I started to understand the comments about this wing liking being powered, as it is very comfortable being in well powered or even overpowered conditions. It's not a wing that gets flustered in these conditions, and if anything excels more when driven hard. I would also say it's a relatively fast wing compared to most freeride wings, so it likes being powered up, it likes to go relatively quick, and it does so without too much drama. The speed of the wing was a little surprising, as the tubes for the leading edge are pretty chunky, so I wasn't expecting good speed, but it does well for a freeride focused wing. Okay, let's now talk about jibes. The jibe performance was relatively good, but I need to temper this slightly in that ordinary jibes rely on you floating the wing through the jibe. This is where very light wings excel, for example the Reedin Supernatural or the F1 Strike. Wings we know to be at the lighter end of the spectrum, and you can include in that things like the SLS unit or the Aluula unit. Anything that is lightweight is going to jibe really well, assuming that it has a reasonable flag out. The Flux does jibe well, but much like a Duotone unit in Dacron, you do feel the weight over those lighter, more playful wings. So there was nothing wrong at all with how it jibes, and it flags nicely for the jibe. It just will drop the strut tail earlier than something like a Supernatural or a Strike. Moving on to advanced jibes, and again a lighter wing will naturally feel a little more playful, but despite that the Flux V2 did still feel very competent and able to perform Heineken jibes and race jibes with relative ease. It doesn't do anything weird or force any change of technique to get good results. One thing to mention here is that the wing does come with a waist harness with a swivel, so this is ideal for all your more advanced jibes, and the swivel stops the leash line getting knotted up. What's more, the leash that comes with the wing is actually a really nice leash and does a really good job, and this is something that Duotone should take note of, as they don't ship any leash with their wings. Okay, moving on to tacks, and here we hit a tiny bit of a chink in the armour of the Flux V2. Now before I talk about this, I want to be clear that the Flux V2 does tack very nicely, and what I'm about to describe is what some might call nitpicking, because a lot of wings can tack well these days, so we have to get into the details and be more critical on high-end branded wings like the Flux V2. Whilst it did tack well and it cut through the air very nicely in the tack, I did notice that at the transition point where the wing goes through the eye of the wind, there is a moment where the wing generates negative pressure. It's only momentary, but it requires you to push back against that negative pressure to get through the tack, and if you're new to tacks, it could be a little bit distracting. By negative pressure, I mean the wing suddenly pushes towards you as you go through the eye of the wind. Now if you do your tacks flying the wing overhead, then this would probably be downward pressure, and if you do your tacks like I do with the wing on its side, then the wing pushes sideways towards you and away from the direction of the turn of your tack, so you do need to be ready for it. If you do push back against the wing, it actually gives up pretty easily and then re-engages the wind quite nicely and pulls you through the rest of the tack. Moving on to jumping, and I have to say I really enjoyed jumping with the Flux V2, and if anything this became the standout feature of the wing for me. I'm aware I only do a standard straightforward jump in my videos. I'm working on a frontside 360, but for review wings, because I don't want to break a demo wing, we just do very basic jumps only. However, the Flux V2 is without a doubt great at jumping. It's impeccably balanced in the air and extremely supportive, making jumping really easy and landing soft. It just felt like easy mode jumping, like the wing was doing the work for you. And I tip my hat to Ozone here, as I did loads of jumps with this wing and it was actually quite hard to mess up as the wing was just so compliant and supportive in jumps. For flagging out, we have a very nice flag out, stable, no pendulum effect. Again, I would highlight that for lightweight wings, flagging out is their realm. For slightly heavier wings like the Flux V2 or a Dacron unit, we can expect the tail to start to dip earlier than it might on those lighter wings. So for the weight of the wing, did a good job. It wasn't unwieldy, it didn't move around too much. The only comment I would make is that the knuckle anti-abrasion pad on the Flux V2 is not very good. So if you're doing a lot of flagging out, you might start to wear the skin off your knuckles. Lastly, let's talk about backwind flying of the wing. Now I am aware that not many riders do backwind riding, but we have probably all seen Ken Adgate backwind the original Flux V1 and probably also the Flux V2. So I was expecting or even hoping that this might be something special on the Flux V2, given that one of the test riders does that particular maneuver quite a lot. I wasn't disappointed. The Flux V2 is probably the best wing I've used for backwind riding in terms of how well it generates power, and also due to that, how easy it was to get on foil tacks from backwind back to normal stance. Now it's quite difficult on a lot of wings to push the nose of the wing through the wind when you're backwinded without losing speed and therefore coming off of foil. But with the Flux V2, it was really compliant being pushed through the wind in that way, but also as you did that, it would generate more power and speed up and give you that extra boost that you need to get out of your backwind positions through attack and then back into a normal stance and foiling away without having a touchdown. So that was really great. I really enjoyed that. I probably did that maneuver way too much when I was testing the wing, but quite often it's really hard to get those types of maneuvers with other wings, so it was really nice to be able to do that with the Flux V2 and have it do it competently. Okay, so let's just take a step away from the Dacron Flux V2 now and talk a little about the Aluula Ultra X Flux V2. Here we have a wing that is almost twice the price of the Dacron version. In fact, it may even be more than twice the price. I need to check the figures. So quite rightly, I'm expecting a lot of performance gain if I step up to an Ultra X. Now, given that they are nearly twice the price, I think it's unrealistic to expect twice the performance, but the reality is you are paying a lot more for the wing, so you should be expecting a lot more performance for your money. In that regard, the main things that you get from going to the Ultra X is that the wing now does sit in that light wing category, so jibes, flagging out and the general playfulness feel of the wing take a step up just purely due to weight. Additionally, the Ultra X is faster than the Dacron version as the leading edge is thinner and it slices through the air a little better, and it is also stiffer, which means that you are getting less deflection of the wing when you're well powered, and so it can hold more speed and power better. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Aluula wings as I find them just too stiff. I prefer the level of stiffness you get from the SLS version of the Duotone unit, which is around 80% of that of an Aluula wing. That little bit of extra give for me makes the wing nicer to use. That said, there is one area where that stiffness really counts, and that is in jumps. You get much better hang time and a softer glide back down from an Aluula wing. The Ozone Flux V2 already jumps really well, and the Aluula just takes that up a notch further. Now to the things that I did not like about the Ultra X, and here we run into an issue that I mentioned at the beginning, in that the Flux V2 Dacron wing in this test was brand new out of the packet, literally brand new. The Ultra X, whilst also quite new, it was not fresh out of the packet. It had been demoed before by other testers. It had a small repair whilst being tested, but this actually wasn't the issue. The issue was the canopy was much looser on the Ultra X. You could put the wings side by side and you could see the canopy was much looser on the Ultra X compared to the Dacron wing. It flapped quite a bit when I was driving it hard upwind, which was quite annoying, and it gave the Ultra X a much worse tack as the canopy was all flapping and draggy through the tack in comparison to the Dacron Flux V2, which was much cleaner and slicker through the eye of the wind. Now, neither I or George at the Water Sports Centre, who was sent the Ultra X for me to test, could not decide if the canopy was meant to be like this or if it had had a wave break on it whilst on demo test for whoever had it before me. Either way, I can only review what is in front of me, and due to these issues, the Flux V2 Dacron for me is the better and more accomplished wing, and the cheaper wing. The Aluula version is purely for those who might like a stiffer or lighter wing, or that extra hang time in jumps. However, overall, the Dacron Flux V2 was the nicer wing to use for me. Let's do the pros and cons, and here we will just deal with the Dacron Flux V2. The pros are it jumps really well, it's stable and well balanced, it's relatively fast compared to its peers, it pumps well and has both a good low end and high end, and it's a very good all-rounder and especially good in high wind or well powered conditions. The cons are there is some negative pressure in tacks, which may be a little difficult for people new to tacking. It's heavier than some Dacron wings on the market and the original V1 Flux, and there is what I consider to be a fairly poor knuckle abrasion pad for the flag handle. We should back reference last year's Flux V1, which was a lighter construction but also more expensive, so the new Dacron Flux has become more budget friendly, but at the cost of removing the lighter leading edge and strut materials from the V1, which made that wing more expensive. In terms of who it is for, I think any rider could use this wing because although it can hold its own in the performance categories, I don't see that it lets itself down on the low end or in lighter wind use. It's good for freeride, wave ride or freestyle and is a good all-rounder. If your preference is light wings, the Dacron version is not for you and look towards the Ultra X, although that will come at a premium price. Lastly, regular viewers are aware that I'm looking for a next wing to purchase that will replace my 5m 2024 unit. That wasn't the 2025 unit, and although I did buy a 4m, I'm not overly keen on the 2025 unit, and so I'm now looking for a new wing that will either be the Reedin Supernatural, which has been shortlisted, or the Dacron Flux V2 from this review, or potentially a wing that I'll be seeing in a couple of weeks' time, which is the 2026 Duotone unit. I have also recently had the North Nova Pro 2026 and the North Mode Pro 2025 in for review, and I'm aware there is now a North Mode Pro 2026 as well, but I haven't had opportunity to look at that wing yet. Both of those wings, the Nova Pro 2026 and the Mode Pro 2025, didn't make the cut, but for completely different reasons. Those two reviews were not without some drama, so watch for those on the channel soon. Okay, that's it for this review. As always, I'd like to thank the Watersports Centre for the use of their demo wings. Without them, I couldn't bring you these comprehensive reviews. Their website is in the description.